Okay, so I've got my columns in there, starting to look okay, but looking at the image here, you can see it's a much rougher timber, and that's an important aspect of that look that it has. And so I want to make it look more like that than the one we've got here, which is nice new clean timber. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time looking at materials before we go into some of the other things we need to set up for your rendering, like lighting. So to get into the material for these elements, I've used the same material for the columns and the beams. So if I go to edit type, you can see the material there is wood structure. But make sure you know that if you go to the Manage tab, you've got the materials option there, so you don't always need to select your objects and go through it that way. You can go straight to materials, and as long as you know the name of the material, find it in the list there. So mine is wood structure. And okay, so you've got the graphics tab, which sets the colour, surface pattern and cut pattern. We've looked at that a little bit before, I think. But then appearance, and hopefully you're already used to using either the duplicate option or replace, sorry guys, and then getting to the library that way. Okay, so make sure you're aware of that. When you right click and go to replace, it'll bring up the asset browser, which has the appearance library. That is one of the most useful resources for rendering in Revit. You have there all of these pre-made wood materials. And they're pretty good, because this is actually what's called the Autodesk material library, or it's part of it anyway. And this is something that comes with most Autodesk products. So it's the same across the other Autodesk rendering programs, or programs that can render, like 3D Studio and AutoCAD. So if you bring files into 3D Studio Max, you'll have all these same materials available. But having said that, it's still not going to give you everything. So you'll often want to have maps and images that aren't in that library. So I just want to show you a couple of ways you can get different images into your materials to use as the basis for the the materials that you're trying to make. So you can see here we've got wood, and actually before I even go too far with this, I'll sort of point out the template that's being used there. So you may not realise at first that the appearance tab uses, or the appearance part of your material uses a series of templates. And maybe, so I don't mess up this one, I'm just going to choose another material. Maybe I'll go to this one, window frame. And so you can see there, this one uses metallic paint. Wood birch, that's using wood again. Let's look at this one, wheel stop, that's using wall paint. So there are a certain number of appearance templates that are essentially built into the program. It's really part of Mental Ray, and well, it started off as part of Mental Ray. It's going to continue even if you don't use the Mental Ray renderer. If you're using the Autodesk renderer, it'll still have the same options, and they're essentially what would be called, sorry, now the name's escaping me, Arc and Design materials. That's it. So in 3D Studio Max, you'll see, and that's actually where they started off. They're a series of Arc and Design templates, which probably won't mean a lot to you until you start using that program. But again here, if you have a look at this wood template, it has just certain properties to do with wood. If we go to that window frame one, it's got certain properties to do with metallic paint. So they have different properties. Now, there'll be cases where you want to adjust properties that aren't there. And so I'm going to just find another one. So we should have a more basic material that is, here we go. Earth, for example, uses, I suppose, the base template, and that's generic. So that shows all of the properties. So notice here we've got all these different properties, as well as the colour and the image file or the image slot there. You've got reflectivity, transparency, cutout, self-illumination, bump, and tint. That's right, exactly. That's it, exactly. That's the reason you have that option to duplicate as generic, so that you can get access to all of those properties, because they're not there for all of the templates. So again, for wood, you don't have self-illumination, because they're assuming that you don't want timber to act as a light bulb and glow. You might want to, but if you want to, you again need to just duplicate as generic, and then you can turn on that self-illumination option and adjust the properties. The same for bumps. You've got relief pattern, which is similar to bumps, but again, if you wanted to have a true bump map, you need to duplicate as generic to get that property to come up. So it's basically a rendering effect that makes it look like the texture has depth. So for something like bricks, it's probably a lot clearer than this. Here we go. So with Masonry Brickwork, it's going to take a second to update that. You can see here it's using this image for the colour of the bricks, but then it's got this relief pattern, which is a black and white version of that brick pattern, where black is low and white is high. And so that makes this wall appear like it's got some depth where the grout is. And so it's not, in 3D, it's not physically any different, but when it renders, it just gives that effect of having some depth. So it's a rendering effect, but it can be pretty realistic. And so again, with timber you don't have that option. You've got the option for a relief pattern with timber, but notice you can't choose an image file. All you can do is tick, and then either based on wood grain, or if you go to custom, with custom you can choose a wood file, an image file, but normally you just base it on the wood grain. So I'm going to turn that option on actually, because I want this to have some depth, this timber. But before I do that, before I make any changes, I'm going to duplicate this appearance. It's called white oak natural medium gloss. Now I could leave it because there are no other materials using this appearance, but I just thought I'd show you that. Make sure you realise that you don't, if you don't want to, you don't have to replace. You can just go to duplicate, and then you can change the settings without having to worry about it changing other things. So the relief pattern there may help to get more depth, but the main issue there is that this image just isn't right. If I want it to look like old timber, I need a different image. So you've got a couple of options there. You can either click on the image file name, and then it'll take you straight to the folder that all of those materials are made from in the appearance library. So again, this just comes with Revit. When you install Revit, you get these image files. So there are quite a few there to choose from, but believe it or not, that is just nowhere near enough when you're working with interiors projects. You need a lot more than this. It's really good as a starting point. I mean, you can see there'll be a few hundred images there, at least, but there are lots of materials in the world, so you need more than that. So I've given you a material images folder. If you go to the P drive, interior design, and then material images, I've added in a lot more there. So if you scroll through at the top level, you'll see a lot that I haven't put into a category yet. So I'll just give them a second to update. Move it up to, there we are, so it's up to here. So these are all images useful for making textures, or useful as textures. Now you're welcome to copy that file, but just remember it's one of the bigger ones. It's I think about 50 gig. Oh no, it's bigger now, I've added more in there. It's 100 gig. So you'll need a bit of room to copy the whole thing, but it's a really useful resource. That's not all of them, I've got probably 10 times that. So I've bought a lot over the years, and the ones that you pay for are much bigger than these as well, much higher quality. So, yeah, these are all, well, they're ones I've collected. Mostly these are ones that I've gotten for free from different things that I've.
Do you sometimes go and take photos of your...
Oh yeah, I've done that plenty of times. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay, so you've got the there's a few woods that I haven't put into the woods folder yet at the end there as well. Just taking a minute to update, but nearly there. There we are. But I have made a wood folder, and I put most of them into there. Just takes a long time to sort these because there are just so many. So if you go into the wood folder, you'll see there's a lot of wood images that I have categorised. And I do have an old wood there. It's a bit difficult to see these as they are. You can try changing to a larger thumbnail if you right click and go to view large icons, then it's easier to see. But a really good option when you're sorting through textures is to right click and then go to right click on an image and then go down to open with just Windows Photo Viewer, and then you can easily flick through to find what you're after. Gives you a good idea of the size of them as well. So you can go a bit mad though searching through the often thousands of images that you'll eventually end up with. So that's half the fun making materials. So just searching through, but I'll go back to the thumbnails for you, otherwise it's just going to take too long. So we've got, again, old wood is probably pretty close to what I want, but we've got to make sure it's going to tile as well. So these are mostly set up to tile, but not all of them are. So I'll try this and just see what happens. So I'm going to go, again, old wood, and you'll see then on the sample cube there, it looks different to what we've got down here. And that's because the stain's still turned on. So I'm going to turn the stain off. And if it's old wood, chances are it's not varnished. So I'm going to go to unfinished. And there we are. So it tiles pretty well actually, this one. So we'll see then what's going to happen if I put this onto the column and the joists. So it's okay, but it's maybe not the right direction. So it looks a bit strange on the joists because the angle is slightly different to the angle of the timber there. So I'm just going to select one of those joists and then go to edit type, wood structure, and I'm going to duplicate this material. So I don't want all of the objects using this material to change, I just want to change the joists. So I'm going to right click on wood structure, duplicate, and I'm going to call this wood structure joist, and beams I should be able to use it for. And now I'm going to go to appearance and again duplicate that one, because again if I make changes here without duplicating, all of them are going to change. And now I'm going to click on that swatch and show you the other way of changing the texture options. So clicking on the file name only lets you change the file to something else, but if you click on the swatch, there is an option in there usually to change the file, but also all these settings. Now, you might remember me showing you this before. Do you remember seeing the panel come up like this and you know what to do? Close it. So if you see this, and a good reminder, if you see anything about UV tiling, that's an option you shouldn't need or have in Revit. So just click OK, get out of there, and then go back into it. Just one of those things. It's from 3ds Max. It's really useful there, but you just don't want it in Revit. So there we are. So now it looks different. There's nothing about UV tiling. All we have is an option for the size and the position. So what I really want to change is the angle. So it's going at a slight angle there. I'm just going to try 5 degrees for the rotation, and that's just brought it around a bit. So clicking OK, OK, OK again. So how much better is that on those joists? It's getting there, but because this image has that that little bit there, that vertical mark over a large area, that becomes very obvious as a repeating element. So a couple of tricks I can use to fix that. I'm going to go back to edit type, back into here. So number one trick for rendering textures, overscale them. So this is very small. That is probably the size it would be in real life, but we're not interested in that. We just want to make it look good and read visually as the material we're after. So I'm going to make that, I mean sometimes they go up to 10 times bigger than it would be in real life. But here I'm just going to make it say 4 times bigger, so 1,000. I'll try, or maybe I think this one, because it's a small object, I'll try about 800. So that's going to be very big now, much bigger than it was originally. Right, so at a distance, that's going to look much better. Now I've still got that vertical element there, so you've got a couple of options there. One of the most obvious would be to open it with Photoshop. So I've still got that coming up in Windows Photo Viewer. The reason I like Photo Viewer so much is because you can easily just go to Open With. Unfortunately we don't have Photoshop in the list there, but if I go to Choose Program and then Browse, I can find Photoshop here in the Adobe folder. And there's Photoshop. So that should come up in the list. So this is the other major technique that you need to think about when you're setting up textures. They actually do a lot of the work in Photoshop. People try to do too much with the material settings in Revit, when often it's easier just to go into Photoshop and get the texture right there, because that's really what is going to set the appearance for your material more than anything when you're using natural materials, especially, so stone, wood, and ceramics, what else? Masonry, anything that's got a texture, usually going to use a photographic image for that texture. And so you do have a lot of those options that I've been showing you, like the staining and texturing and things like that, again in Revit or any 3D rendering program. But if you can do it in Photoshop, it's usually better. Yeah, well, you need to know that. You don't really need to set it in Photoshop. You just need to know yourself how big it's going to be in the space. Okay, so here again, the issue is these parts here are making it appear very obviously as though it's tiling. We know it's tiling, but we want to disguise that as much as possible. So I'll show you a couple of easy things you can do in Photoshop to fix that. Photoshop is going the way of everything else. They're putting in these stupid welcome screens and splash screens when the program loads, they just slow everything down. They're meant to make it easy for the new users, but they just get in the way of everyone else. So that's what it's doing. It should just, it's open, it's ready to go, but then it's just doing all this stupid background stuff. Like AutoCAD is as well. You've probably seen that welcome screen that comes up now. You can't even turn it off. And it just slows everything down. Thank you, the marketing people. It's funny, I mean, Photoshop and AutoCAD used to run on computers with 100th the memory and 100th the processing power they do now, and they ran just fine. So if for some reason things are slowing down, and it's not the core features of the program. Okay, so here, finally open, and we've got the, again, this dark part here, so I'm just going to use Clone Stamp. So if you haven't, yep, the Clone Stamp tool, fantastic for working with photos. And so the way you use Clone Stamp, if you haven't before, is hold down Alt to set a target. So there's my target indicator. Release it after you've clicked, and then move the cursor to where you want to paint. So it's going to paint out that.
So are you holding your finger down and moving it?
Yeah, holding down and moving. Yeah. So again, I'll do it over here. So Alt to set a target, Clone Stamp. Yeah, this one over here. Yeah. So the one that looks like a stamp. And then, so again, hold down the Alt key to set your target, click to choose where you want it to be. So I'll do it right on this grain, bring it over, and then it'll give you a preview as you move your cursor. So I'm going to click to paint with the Clone Stamp. So you might need to choose a few different target points as you go. But you know, once you practice painting with a photo, which is essentially what we're doing here, so you'll be amazed how you can make something look like an original photo. This is how they do a lot of that photo retouching that you see when they, you know, make someone look skinnier or bigger. You can easily make someone look a lot bigger than they really are too. They don't seem to do that. Yeah, for some reason. Yeah. So that's how they do it. It's funny, some people, I think that's the only technique they know, but they make a lot of money working for magazines. Yeah, well, yeah, so that's it. So you can do it in After Effects. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's cleared up most of it. Could even go a bit further, and if you want to take away this part, but probably don't need to go too far. That's enough. And so I'll just save as Old Wood 1. Back into Revit, and I'm going to again edit type, find the material. So now this is, did I not, I didn't save it, so I must have changed the angle. I don't know what's happened there, but I'll just do that again. So yeah, okay, so I have to fix the other one. So back to wooden structure, browse. I must have clicked cancel before, so I'm going to duplicate again, and wood structure, joist, beam, duplicate, and then I can just choose Old Wood 1. There it is. While I'm at it, I'm just going to fix the other one. Should be back on 0. Okay, so you can see there, this one still has the lines, but this one doesn't. Might be a little bit large, so for those I can make it a bit smaller. So again, back to appearance, find that one. So yeah, 800 maybe a tiny bit too big, so maybe 600 for these, and I can have a different size for the the columns. Now these should be linked. I don't know why that's not changing automatically. Okay, now notice that the beam isn't using that same material. You can still see the lines there because the beam is a different type. So I need to go and check that the beam, which uses the 250 by 250 type, also uses that wood structure joist beam material that I've just made. Right, and so now the column, you can see it's a little bit more involved because it has the top part, which is using the probably the material I want. Maybe I'll change the change it to the same as I've used for the beam. But the shaft, I want to have a different material. I want that at a different angle. So what I'll need to do is go to Edit Family, select this shaft, and then add in a parameter, shaft material. Okay. Save that. So now I can select any column, go to Edit Type, there's my shaft material parameter, browse, and start with wood structure, and I think I'll duplicate that just like the others. So wood structure, column, shaft, go to appearance, choose that image, and there I basically just want that to go, well, it's coming back 5, so then coming around, so it's going to be 80, say about 86. Oh no, sorry, the other way. So 90, 94. Looks pretty close to vertical. Luckily you can see the preview there, so you can just keep experimenting until it's right. Maybe 93, 92. That might be okay. I may be going too far, but these ones are okay. We'll see how it looks. Doesn't need to be perfect. And okay, so I'll just click OK there. And now what I didn't do is I didn't duplicate the appearance. It's no problem. So you'll always forget to do, so I still do it, like I've been saying. Yep. So it's good to see this. It's easy to fix. So back to wood structure is the one that the capital's using. So I can just go to the appearance there, and so you can see here it's got that angle 92. So to fix it, what I'm going to do is go to column shaft and duplicate that. So it's using a new one. Now I can go back to wood structure. That's it. It's using the original, and we'll just set that back to, well, I might just do a different angle again, maybe 3, so it's just not exactly the same as all the others. There we go. So it makes a big difference when you see things, rendered like that. Setting the angles of them, definitely. So you get the general look of it in Photoshop, but then setting the way it gets wrapped onto your objects, you do that in Revit. Exactly, that's right, exactly, that's right, So this is where 3D rendering programs really are a huge advantage over Photoshop, because I've seen people who try to do all their texturing in Photoshop, and for things like this, where you've got this much detail, it takes hours and hours just to do one perspective. And then if you make a change, you've got to do it all again. So let the computer do the work. I still do the people in Photoshop, unless it's an animation. So I'm just going to quickly do a floor text, just to quickly go over those things again. So with this floor selected, edit type. I've done one earlier, but I'm going to do a better one this time. Edit, wood flooring, Now I don't need to duplicate that because I've only got one wood flooring material in here that I need. Going to go to appearance. It's using beechwood gunstock, and I'm happy to keep that name. I don't care if it's still called gunstock, even though it won't be that material. Just going to click on the swatch there, and you can see that I can change the file name from there. Go to the material images folder on the P drive, and in the wood folder there should be one called cedar fence. Here it is. Yep, so actually I've made a second one. So this is the original, and I made this one which is a copy. I'll just show you the difference. So that's the original, which is a really good texture, but it's just a bit too saturated for what I want. So that one's just a little bit desaturated. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to use. It's a nice clear image for floorboards, and it doesn't have the divisions in the boards, which is technically not correct, but I'm not fussed. I just want it to look the way I want it to look. So that's what I'm going to choose. This one here isn't bad either as well, actually, but that's what I'm going to use. Yeah, okay, so you just count how many there are. So here we've got, in that image, between the two ends of the dimension, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 boards. So if you want each board to be exactly 170, that means the total image would be 1700. So it's just 170 by 10. Now that still might not be big enough. Like I was saying, I overscale if I have to, whenever necessary. So here, let's see. That's okay. I think it could handle being a bit bigger. So we know they're 170. We can specify that when we do the construction. But just to make it look a bit better in that perspective, I think it wouldn't hurt to make them even bigger. So I think 2400 might be good. You're the only one who will know they're not the right exact size. Maybe, yeah. But notice we've got a problem because they're not the right direction. Simple thing. Now I don't need to go keep selecting the floor. That's right, yep. So they're boards. They're going the wrong way. So they've got to be perpendicular. So just appearance, click on the swatch, and again using the angle. Make that 90. There we go.
And that's going to change every floor that's got that material design, not just on that level.
Yes, that's right. Exactly, yep, that's right.
When I did it for them, I said that because of the buildings on angle.
Yeah.
But they would just
They would be perpendicular to the joists, and then the joists would stop at that wall that's at an angle. So the joists are different lengths, but the boards are just going to be perpendicular, so they're parallel to the wall that's behind our camera there, which makes it easier. And you can show that. So I think rendered plans are something people don't do enough. But if you make this realistic, it's a really easy way of having, you don't like that sort of thing? I don't mind that. Yeah. Well, you can soften that. So that's the other thing I'll just show you. So graphic display options. And you can adjust. So here you can just turn on photographic exposure. And then control that. So, yeah. So you can go to manual and adjust this brightness value. Oops, going the wrong way. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. So, okay, so if you turn shadows on. Now, of course, yeah. So here, so we've got a couple of options. So if we go to sun settings, I'm going to turn the ground plane off, so I don't have a shadow outside the building. And then, now, notice that we're getting these, yeah, so that can be a bit strange. So you'll have to think about what's the cut plane height. So there, you could adjust that if you go into your view settings. Yeah, I think make it higher, because the reason it looks strange is because it's cutting halfway through the window. So if you make it, say, 1800, then it will look more obviously like a window. But you might need to play with that. Also check your sun angle, so if you go to sun settings, you can make a new sun setting. Yeah, so just duplicate, and then yeah, exactly, play around with it. So this angle here could be greater. That's probably, so what was it, 35? Sorry, this one is the one I want. So let's try 170. That's probably too much, but I'll just show you what that does. So actually, let's just start again. Oh, it's remembered it. So what was it, 135? So this here could come back to that's our altitude. I'm wondering why that's. There we go, that is the right one. Okay, so 165 maybe. That's it. So that's much better now, just by changing the angles. It's not so obvious that the windows are a problem. And okay, so then back into graphic options. Then I can, so going further with the exposure, so that's going a bit too far maybe, but that's probably okay. And then you can also go into lighting and adjust the relative values of, say, the shadows. So you can make the shadows lighter that way. And then the sun also you can make brighter or less bright. And then also colour correction. Yeah, that's set up, so you don't even, that's not even got rendering. So I might duplicate that one. And so this could be level 1 rendered. Yeah, no, you can't render these views. You might not want the. Oh, now what's happened? No, sorry, it hasn't picked up the graphics options. So I'm going to try creating a view template and calling this plan render, and then I'll try applying that to this one. For some reason it's not showing my floor. Plan render. There we go. So yeah, just watch out for that. Sometimes when you copy views, it doesn't copy across all the view settings for some reason.
So how did you get it back into some view settings?
Yeah, when you right click on a view, you can create a view template from view, which is essentially saving all the settings from that view. And then you can apply a view template to apply those view settings to a new view. So now I can just hide these things, and eventually we'll have a fairly clean looking view. Oops. So I'm just using shortcuts to hide things there, and there we go. Okay, but the main thing is getting your perspective set up. It's still though really good to have your plans and sections coming along as you do those. And so hopefully we'll have a bit of time after this to look at lighting. We'll see how we go.